Good morning, everyone. I really appreciate you people attending. We have a lot of information that you will soak up and you'll be able to take home and provide to your associations. It is very important that they understand what's available for them at the OHF level and at the Hockey Canada level. Welcome to our guest speakers. We'll have an enjoyable day. Welcome to our past presidents, Joe Drago and Ed Pupich. And let's begin. Let's have some fun, ask a lot of questions, enjoy the day.
Okay, our first forum today is the Hockey Canada Insurance Forum, and our panel consists of Sasha Valancourt, is a client executive at BFL Canada, who is the broker for Hockey Canada Insurance Program. Sasha transitions to BFL Canada from Hockey Canada. Todd Jackson is the Senior Manager, Insurance and Member Services with Hockey Canada. He has been with Hockey Canada for 15 years. Joe Fidelio is the Vice President for Financial Alliance Claims, which covers the Hockey Canada Directors and Officers Insurance Program. So I'm going to ask these gentlemen to come up to the front here, and they're going to give you a presentation. And when we're going to hold the questions till the end, till they're finished. So when they're finished, you can ask questions.
Thank you. Good morning, folks, and great to be here this morning. I'm gonna talk down here if that's okay, because I kind of like to be at eye level. So if you start to fall asleep, I can wake you up. Insurance is not exciting, I guarantee it, but we're going to try to get through it. And we've got a video to try to break up the monotonous part of it, and certainly questions are key. We're gonna go over some of the policies that are in place with respect to Hockey Canada. With the help of Joe, we're going to talk about Directors and Officers Liability Insurance. Sasha is going to talk a little bit about optional dental insurance that exists, and some of you may or may not know about that, and try to give you some basic information with respect to the insurance program, with respect to where you can go with questions and coverages. And we're going to talk a little bit about sanctioning and what events are sanctioned and not sanctioned and the reason for that, as well as process around that. Just to finish off, we're going to talk a little bit about contracts. We are really putting emphasis, I guess, on reviewing contracts, making sure we know what we sign, on hold harmless clauses that are passing on liability to us that we don't really need to be taking. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. We're going to have questions at the end, but certainly if you have a burning question that you want to ask as we go through, please do that. Stop me and do that. So we'll move along here. And did you say there was a clicker here, Will? Right here. We got it. Perfect. Thank you. See if this make this work here. Okay. There we go. We got it working. Just got to hold it up. Start with the premium breakdown, and I know most of you are familiar with this, but it's really a good reminder as to where your $16.15 goes with respect to that membership premium. And this breaks it down quite nicely. $8.90 goes towards the liability policy, so obviously that's a large part of the premium. In there is included the sexual misconduct liability coverage, and we'll talk about that as we go through. $2.50 goes to the accidental death and dismemberment policy. That is a policy that covers very serious injury. Okay, and again, we're gonna talk about each of these individually as we go through. $2.50 goes to deductibles and administration as we deliver these policies. $1.25 goes to the accident dental insurance, and that's the insurance that revolves all around the injury report form. So when you're filling out your injury report forms and you're sending those in through your member partner into Hockey Canada, that's what you're doing, is you are relying on that policy or that coverage at the $1.25. Yeah. I can certainly do that. I have no problem with that, and we can work with Will and so on to make that information available. No problem at all. And then there's $1 that goes to risk management. So 50 cents of that goes back to the branch, 50 cents of that goes back to Hockey Canada, and that revolves around delivering risk management programming. So that's your $16.15. It's important to note that the directors and officers liability insurance that Joe is going to talk about is included with this. You don't pay a premium for your directors and officers liability insurance, which is certainly a benefit of the program. Let's see if we can get this to, there we go. So the first part of the program that I want to talk about is the Health Benefits Trust Program, and this is that $1.25 that I talked about. This is the secondary accident dental program that exists, okay? And I put an emphasis on the fact that it is a secondary coverage. It's a self-managed program. It's managed by Hockey Canada. We have people who work in the claims area who take care of those injury report forms when they come in. They enter the information, they process the checks, and the coverage applies, and this is really, really important, and this is important for your members to know, that it does apply to any other insurance that they have. So they must have primary insurance, so they have to have provincial health insurance or territorial health insurance, and then it also responds after any private insurance that they have. Okay, so they need to claim to their private insurance first and then to us. In a situation where a family does not have private insurance, and that does exist, in those situations, we will respond. So we will respond once the primary insurance pays. Okay, so that's really important because we get asked that question on an ongoing basis. So let's talk about the types of coverage. Starting with dental, so the secondary dental policy covers, or the secondary dental coverage covers $1,250 per tooth to a maximum of $2,500 per accident. Okay, so if there's one tooth that's damaged, it's $1,250 maximum. If there's more than one tooth, we go up to $2,500. Now, I'm going to talk right now about an optional plan that is available. This is not administered through Hockey Canada. This is administered actually with the help of Sasha Vancourt, and he's going to talk about that in a second. I'll just introduce it to you. And what we have done is we've made available a package to groups of volunteers, groups of players, officials, coaches, bench staff, and it has to be the group. We can't sell this to one member or to one team. It has to be a group within the governing body. Okay, so for example, you take all the officials within your governing body and you say to them, we're going to pay an extra $5 in order to get extra coverage from a dental perspective, and you can see that extra coverage there. Okay, so this is available. You can do it by contacting your member partner. Your member partner would then contact either us or Sasha, and we would work with you to put that extra dental coverage in place. Sash, did you want to add to that just a little bit?
Sure. First of all, I just want to thank you, the OHF, for the invitation this weekend. It's always a pleasure for us to travel around the country and meet all of the Hockey Canada branches. So just to give you a little bit of background regarding that program, a couple of years ago, Hockey Alberta called us because it happened one winter. A couple of their referees got injured pretty badly with dental injuries. So Hockey Alberta asked us to see what we can do to help them, because obviously, you know, as Todd mentioned, the first layer is always the parents or the members' insurance who needs to cover that. So the second layer is Hockey Canada, and there was nothing after that. So this is more like catastrophic injuries, but it's happening. So Hockey Alberta wanted to cover all their referees. So we worked with AIG on that, and AIG was really supportive and collaborative to propose these rates that you have right now on the slide. So how it works, it's every members of a group needs to jump in. So for example, in Alberta, every members of every referees needed to join the program. So it was administered by Hockey Alberta. So as is mentioned, it's a third layer. So in order to reach that, you know, you need to have go to the first and second layer. It's a one-year policy that we had on the accident policy of Hockey Canada, and it's mostly for junior players, junior leagues, and referees. So if you have any question, I'll be here today the whole day, and Todd is aware of the program as well. So
great, thanks, Sasha. Just so you know, This wasn't working because I didn't have it turned on. Phil was moving the slides for me, so. That's how we cover each other's backs, by the way. Anyway, moving right along. So that's the optional coverage that you can consider, and certainly if you have more questions, whether it's you go through your member partner, you can get answers from Sasha and from BF. So moving into the accident part of this coverage, and we're still talking about the coverage that you pay the $1.25 for. Okay, so this is still the self-administered coverage that we have with Hockey Canada. These are some of the sublimits. These are not all of the sublimits. And I really want to stress right now that if you have any questions with respect to insurance, there is all kinds of information on our website. And if you go to our website, you go to hockey programs, you go to safety and insurance, all this information is there, including the electronic safety requires teamwork. How to make a claim, all that stuff is there. What do we do if we're traveling to the US? Okay, so it really gives you an overview of what the insurance program is. Sublimits, physiotherapy is a big one. Important to remember, it's $500 per year. It is not $500 per accident. That's one that gets confused quite often by our members. Prosthetic appliances, $1,000. Tuition expenses, that's one that we fall back on more and more now with concussions, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. There's a $2,000 limit on that. Emergency travel, I usually lump those two together, the taxi benefit and the travel expense benefit. It's about $140. That's in an emergency. So mom and dad may not be at the rink some night, and Johnny or Sarah get hurt, and they have to get to the rink. Perhaps mom has to jump in a taxi to get there, that kind of thing. So that kind of thing would be covered. 100% ambulance expense. And that's an important one because there are a lot of provinces that do charge for ambulance services. Again, it needs to go to their private insurance first. We would cover 100% of what's left, up to the $5,000 actually, and that sounds like a lot of money, but if you get to a situation where you now have air ambulance that's necessary, that builds up very, very quickly. Loss of income, again, this is one that gets questioned an awful lot, folks. It's really important to understand what context this is in. And the $1,000 is there to give some immediate help to somebody who's been hurt and off work. Okay, and it's not there to replace income. And quite often that gets confused. So if somebody is off for 2 weeks, so there's a 2-week waiting period on that. If somebody is off for 2 weeks, then they can claim up to $250 a week, up to that $1,000 maximum. It's also important to note that if they are on another kind of for example, disability, so they're collecting disability, then they cannot claim this, okay? So this is if they are not collecting any other compensation when they're off work. Yep. Yes. Right. Right. Yeah. Yes. 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 Let me give it to you this way, Bill. We manage this plan, so there is an ability to assess a file, and I do that, or I would have to do that obviously through Glenn and myself. There is a way to assess that. If it were a very serious injury, there was some exceptional costs, then we can expand those sublimits, yes. Okay, but these are the standard practice, if you will, if that helps. Okay, yeah. Yep.
I get asked by parents a lot of times, does loss of income help them if their child is hurt and they have to take off?
Well, what you have to remember, folks, is that this plan is for the members who have paid a premium, okay? So there are isolated situations where we may do that, okay, in a serious injury, but for the most part, no. It's really reserved for our members. You have to have paid a premium in order to benefit from the coverage, okay? Other questions? No? We're good? Okay. Whoop. Now it's going too quick. I also want to talk a little bit about concussion injuries, because we get a lot of questions around concussion injuries. What we're finding with concussions, folks, is that there's a lot of different interventions that are taking place. There's all kinds of stuff that is being done now in the treatment of concussions. We do have a limited amount of coverage that does exist in a situation where there's been a concussion injury. This will give you a clear idea of what we do cover. In a lot of cases when there's a concussion because of the mechanism of the injury, because the head has gone back and forth, there could be neck, muscle, that type of damage where physiotherapy is necessary. We would cover that obviously under the $500 a year. Neuropsychology would also fall under that, so if that player needed some kind of intervention from a neuropsych standpoint, we would consider covering that. And tuition expense, which I talked about earlier, becomes very important because quite often in today's medical world, kids are told to rest their brains, not do a lot of school. They fall a little behind, so we would cover that under tuition if they need to catch up once they are to that point where they're back to school and back being educated. One important point with concussions is we do not cover baseline testing. Baseline testing is a pre-test. Includes a pre-test. An accident has not necessarily happened at that time, so that's not something. This is an accident policy. That's not something that we would cover. So if you're paying $25 to an organization to have impact testing done, then that you're on your own as far as that cost, okay? So that's really important because we get asked that question all the time as well. Okay. Yeah, generally though, the retest is part of the overall package, so it would not, it's part of that pre-package. So.
Just, guys, if you're gonna ask questions, just wait for the mic so we can put it into the system, please.
Okay, so that gives you a quick overview of some of the more common claims that we get, and you'll see that there are many, many more that are covered, or much more that's covered where you can go online, go into Safety Requires Teamwork, and you're able to find those different coverages that exist, okay? If you ever have a question, shoot an email to your member partner, and certainly they come to us and we can help answer that question for you with respect to that self-administered program. How do you make a claim to our HBT program? So it all revolves, as I said earlier around that injury report form, okay? So that is the most important tool that needs to be used. Every team should be aware of that form. Every parent should be aware of that form. And the best way to do that, obviously, is to get it into the hands of your coaches, get that information into the hands of your coaches. So, first thing that has to happen is you ensure the form is fully completed. And the parents can fill it out, the trainer can fill it out. As the players get older, they may fill it out, that's fine as well. Make sure it's fully completed. Every box is ticked off. That's really, really important. The other important component is on page 2, which is the back of that form, which is the physician statement and or the dental statement, whichever may be applicable. You got to make sure that that's completed as well. And the reason is that if it's not completed, let's see if we can move this here. Can you guys move that for me? Thanks. If it's not completed, okay, go ahead. You can keep going through that chart. Thanks. Then you're going to have waiting. Okay, because what has to happen is that will go to your member partner and they'll review it, or Hockey Canada is going to review it and they're going to come back and say, we need this, 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 and this. And that is going to delay the claim even further. Okay, so we have to make sure that we do that. I'm going to try this again, guys, but there we go. Once it's fully completed, you submit it to your member partner. Your member partner will then approve that form. And the reason we do that is we want to make sure that the event is actually a sanctioned event. We want to make sure that the person who is making the claim is actually registered, okay? And they will then approve that form, and once they've approved the form, they will send it in our direction. It's a really, really, really important that you pass on to your members that they keep a copy of the form. And you're going to see why in a minute, but it's important, if nothing else, that if it somewhere in the process gets put aside or lost, then they have a copy of that form. Okay, and that's really, really important. The member partner submits to Hockey Canada. Once that happens, once we have that form and we've opened a file, then receipts can be sent directly to us. Okay, they don't have to go back through the member partner. They can come directly to us with the receipts. And those receipts should be attached to a copy of an injury report form, and you can see why it's important to keep a copy now, because if you do that, it just speeds everything up. Because we get those, if we get those receipts in a pile in a brown envelope, then the people in claims have to look at them and try to figure out who they belong to, and it just, again, it slows down the process even more. Okay, make sense? Receipts can be sent directly to Hockey Canada, attention to the claims department, and again, I've put here, ensure you've got the player's name, phone number, all that information, but if they're attaching the injury report form, then they have all that information. So we're in good shape. And also attach a copy of, I've got that note that the payments will be made won't be made without submitting original receipts. Okay, so you have to submit original receipts in order for those to be paid. Yeah.
You're referring to member partner, like I'm from the OMHA, so
Yep.
they would send, a parent would send it to the OMHA, then to you, not, you're talking member partner, not branch like the OHF then?
Member partner.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but it is the member partner who we get that form from. So, okay. Any other questions on that? So that is the process, folks, and we realize that there is a time delay. It can take 6 to 8 weeks. There's, especially in the winter, obviously, when it's very, very busy. So there is a time delay there between receiving that form and getting the claim. You have 52 weeks once we receive the form, so we need the form within 90 days, which is 3 months, but you have 52 weeks to actually get the receipts to us once we get that form, okay? In situations where there's a dental injury, quite often we will get a note from the dentist that says, Johnny or Sarah are very young, they're gonna need some dental work down the road. And that's a good thing to have because we have that on file. So if it's beyond the 52 weeks, then we can cover that work as long as we're within the limits. Okay, any questions on that? See if we can. Okay, the next policy that I want to talk about is the accidental death and dismemberment policy. This policy covers very serious permanent injuries. Okay, so an emphasis on permanent injuries which occur while participating in a sanctioned activity. So it has to be a sanctioned activity, which we know. The coverage is in addition to any other valid and collectible policy. So it doesn't matter what other insurance mom and dad have with respect to AD&D. This is a one-time payout that, if they meet the criteria of the policy, would get paid out. Okay. This is a whole table of losses. I'm not going to go through them all, but these are losses that are included within our accidental death and dismemberment policy. Some of the more common ones, unfortunately, loss of life we deal with. Most of those are members going directly to or from a sanctioned event. Okay, emphasis that they have to be going directly to or directly from. And they're in a car accident, the member is killed, then there would be a benefit to the family. Loss of sight, again, we still get loss of sight injuries that occur. The loss of sight has to be 100% and it has to be permanent. Sometimes it takes time for that loss of sight to be determined because it takes time for that injury to heal, so they don't know what the prognosis is going to be until the injury is healed. We also get, there's a whole other list in the top there where there's loss of hearing, there's loss of sight, there's loss of use. We go down to the bottom, again, there's loss of use injuries. We've had a couple where somebody has fallen on an arm. There's been loss of use of that arm because of the fall. That's been deemed permanent, irrecoverable, and there's been a payout with respect to that injury. Okay. So what's important with respect to this, before we do that, let's talk about this one. This is the more serious, obviously, and it's paralysis. The less we deal with this, the better. but we do deal with it. And it's important that you note that there are, I guess, 3 types of coverages here: quadriplegia, paraplegia, and hemiplegia. They are $1 million payout, okay? So if it's deemed that it's irrecoverable and they are not going to rehabilitate to a point where there's movement and they can function, then there's that $1 million payout. That's if they're under 70, and that covers most of our members. I mean, there is an age specification within the policy. So, Ed, you're laughing. But but it is in the policy, so I thought you guys should know that. There's also a Class 1, Class 2 difference here, guys. And the Class 1 volunteer is that volunteer that's actually paying the premiums. So it's the coaches, the referees, the players. It's those that are directly involved with the game. The Class 2 are all the other volunteers around, okay, that aren't necessarily paying that premium. Okay, so that would be the people who are organizing your events, the timekeepers, the people who are volunteering, but not necessarily on the registry and not necessarily officially registered. Okay, so that's that Class 1, Class 2 difference. There's some other coverages that are related to the AD&D policy. Keep in mind, these are paid out if the AD&D policy is paid out. Okay? So there's the emergency taxi benefit, $250. There's funeral expenses in the case of an accidental death for $10,000. There's eyeglasses, contact lenses would be covered in the case of them being damaged in an accident. Again, they've got to be related to an AD&D claim, guys. Rehabilitation, $25,000 would be related to a paralysis claim. Quite often in today's world, there's some significant rehabilitation that has to take place, so we have coverage there for that. Home alteration, again, that's part of the paralysis claim. Repatriation benefit, $25,000, and tutorial fee benefit. But again, it's all related to the AD&D, so that AD&D claim has to be accepted. The other one that's key for you guys is the critical stress counseling. Because if there is a serious accident that occurs with a member, quite often it affects the team, it affects it affects everyone around that person that are our members. And it's important that critical stress counseling be put in place right away. So that's something where you can call your member partner, they will get a hold of us, and we will try to work out how we can get that in place. A lot of stress counseling is now free of charge. There's a lot of organizations that do it free of charge, and I know in Southern Ontario there are many, okay, but there could be a charge at some point, so yeah.
So, for example, we had a young gentleman who was coaching in our association this year, diagnosed with leukemia, didn't progress the way that they wanted to, and there was a real fear as a coach he would pass away. Now, we kept him coaching because it was better for him to stay active. Would the policy have covered the team should he have unfortunately lost his life? That we could have sought stress counseling for them.
It's a little different situation because chronic disease is not covered under AD&D, but in situations like that when they happen, what we try to do is the member partner will come to us and say, a young person has passed away on the team. Is there a way we can get counseling for the team? And we'll say, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to pull it from that HBT program, and we will put we'll put the claim towards that person who passed away, and we will make money available for stress counseling up to that $5,000 limit. Okay, so we do that through the HBT program. Other questions? And the age on the date of the accident is, there is, as you get older, the amount of payment does go down. So that's another part of the policy, so you should know that. Any questions, guys? Sorry, guys, we're getting delay here for some reason. That's me, I don't think it's you guys. Okay, so important steps with respect to the accidental death and dismemberment policy. If you feel that there's a claim apparent, so if you feel something on the weekend has occurred where there could be a spinal, where there could be a loss of sight injury, there could be potential loss of use, as I've described, where they fall on their arm and just something very, very serious, and you're not sure if it's under the AD&D policy, it's really important that you take some initial steps. The first step, obviously, is you would contact your member partner and make them aware of what's happened. I think that's really, really important. Okay, at that point, the branch would probably become aware as well. And then what happens is they will contact us, and they can contact us 24 hours a day, whether it's Glenn or myself. And they will contact us, and we will then advise the insurers right away. And we will advise them whether it's weekends or nights or whatever it is, just so they know that this has happened and that there's a potential claim that's coming. It's not the end of the world if that doesn't happen, but it's good if it does because it really helps us to give the insurers the heads up. When you do that, the name and the DOB of the player that's been hurt is always helpful to us, as well as just a brief description of the accident, because quite often initially you don't have a whole lot of information. All you're getting is this player went into the board's head first, they've been taken to the hospital by ambulance, we're not sure what the prognosis is going to be. That's fine, that's all we need. Okay, that's all we need. So if you feel there's a claim, go to your member partner. We'll immediately advise the insurers, as I said, and we will then advise on next steps, and we will also help you with counseling. So we may say, go ahead, here's $1,000, get counseling going within 24 hours, bring the team in, talk to them, whatever you feel needs to be done. Again, there's a lot of free service out there, folks, with respect to counseling. So that can be utilized, but there is a little bit of money there too if we need to assist in that way. Any questions on AD&D? Questions on the process or? No? Okay, good. So the next one I want to talk about is general liability, and I guess simply explain this covers basically your lawsuits and any settlements that we do with respect to our liability policy, with respect to a liability claim that exists within the organization. Who are the named insured? I think this is pretty well common sense, but obviously Hockey Canada and all our family is insured, the 13 branches, the member partners, the associations, the leagues, the participants, the teams, officials of any of the foregoing, obviously, including teams that are based in the USA, and Herb, that would be obviously important when we get to Major Junior, where we've got teams within the US. So you can see that it's all encompassing, that we really do cover a huge, huge spectrum of people within the organization. I think I just got to stand closer here, eh? Just go back one, if you would, Will. One more. Sorry, guys. This is an overall list of the people that fall within those areas that I just talked about, okay? So you can see it's everything from owners to volunteers to instructors. There's a whole basket of people that are covered within the liability policy. So we have made it an all-encompassing coverage. So I think that it's worry-free with respect to who's covered, when they're covered. As long as you're involved with a sanctioned event, then we're in good shape. So, Phil?
With regards to the OHL and their teams, does our coverage extend to those teams that register with USA Hockey but are playing in our leagues?
No. They would be covered under, playing in our leagues? Yes, I'm sorry. But if you have a team that's registered with USA Hockey that just simply comes up for a tournament, then obviously they're with USA Hockey. We do work with USA Hockey, so if there are teams here that are also registered with USA Hockey, there is some agreement there where we would work with that. So, okay. But amateur teams that are simply coming up, obviously they're not. So,
Todd, if you don't mind, can you clarify that a bit? So if we give permission for Buffalo to have a team come over here and play at the minor level, are they covered?
no.
No, that's what I'm.
No, only if they're permanently in the league.
Well, that's
So
what I'm asking. If they've got permanent permission that's been approved through the process to play in a league, and let's be specific, in the OMHA for the entire
Yes,
season,
if they're
covered under this?
If they're playing here,
Yes.
if they're playing here within our leagues, there's coverage.
And they're paying no premium for that coverage?
They would pay a premium when they register with you.
But what if they're not registered? What if they
Now, if
register?
they're not registered, then they're not covered.
Okay, that's what I want to clarify.
So they have to have registered in the league and be in the league and playing in the league and paid the premium, and all those steps have to be taken, right? So, that makes sense? Okay.
Todd?
No. So when they're playing full-time in the league,
Yep,
but they're registered USA Hockey,
yeah.
they're still just registered
But they're
under
also
USA
registered
Hockey.
with us, right?
No, they're not. We don't register
Well, if they're not
them.
registered with us and they haven't paid a premium, then we would have to go back
Like-
and check that, Pat, because
Yeah, because we
I don't feel
don't
they would.
charge them to
Yeah.
play in our leagues.
Right.
They just register USA
Yeah.
Hockey. We confirm that registration
Yeah.
and just allow them into the league.
so that we would have to check, because I don't think that if they had not paid a premium that they would be.
Yeah, because I've always told them they don't have any coverage
Right.
except USA Hockey,
Right,
so.
because they're not registered with us.
That's right.
Right.
But if you could verify that, because we
Yep,
have quite a number.
absolutely. And that's what we were saying here, is if they're not registered with us, then they're not covered. There's no coverage there.
Todd, can I add something?
Yeah.
If there's a team from the US or outside who's coming to Canada to play, you can ask them for a proof of insurance as well before let them jump on the ice. So, as you know, we issue certificate for our Canadian team who go to the US all the time. So, we should ask the same from them when they come here.
Absolutely.